Spring is coming. What to grow? Hi, folks. This is a Piney Wood Prepper, and we're going to talk a little bit about gardening today. You know, it's the end of January, and that means spring is about a month and a half away. March the 19th, to be exact. Are you going to plant a garden? Well, with food prices going through the roof, it sounds like a pretty good idea to me. You'll not only save money, but you know what? A fresh tomato right out of the garden just can't be beat. If you've never planted a garden, my friend, there's no better time to start. You know, there are some things that are pretty easy to grow, and they will produce well into next fall. All they need is some water and a little fertilizer along. Oh, and some weeding. And they're some of my favorite foods, so it's a win-win proposition. But you don't even have to wait until March the 19th. In a few more weeks, about the middle of February, I'll be planting some cool weather stuff like carrots, onions, radishes, and probably a few brassicas such as broccoli and cabbage and maybe a few turnips and some other greens. If I find them, I'll plant some strawberries too. I love me some strawberries. Then, after the danger of the frost is over, I'll plant tomatoes, bell peppers, jalapenos, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, corn, and probably a few cantaloupes and watermelons. Now, I mentioned that some of that will go well into the fall, and those tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, and okra will bear fruit into the fall. You know, okra is the last thing I plant because it loves hot weather. And I'll just quickly mention herbs. They add so much flavor to a dish. And, you know, there's nothing like going out and snipping off a few leaves from a thyme or a rosemary or you know, whatever, any of the herbs, adding it to a dish. They're easy to grow, and they're often planted in pots and put on the patio or even on a windowsill. You know, I recently put up a video I got microgreens. Like herbs, they're easy to grow. They don't take up much room, and they're so good for you. You know, I mentioned okra earlier, like in hot weather, but I always get anxious waiting for the time to plant the okra for two reasons. Number one, I absolutely love fried okra. Well, I love it just about any way you can cook it. And number two, they have the most beautiful white blooms. And speaking of blooms, I plant some flowers around the garden too. Oh, they're pretty to look at, but they're beneficial as well. Flowers such as zinnias and some others will attract insects such as ladybugs and other insects that will eat the bad bugs in your garden. Then there are marigolds, petunias, and nasturtiums, and those actually repel pests. So, in addition to the fact that they're pretty to look at, they dress up your garden, they're really beneficial to you. Now, a little bit of advice. Number one, grow what you like to eat. Don't grow stuff you don't like, or you'll end up feeding it to the chickens. You do have chickens, don't you? Secondly, follow the directions on the seed packs. They'll give the directions that will give your plants the best chance of survival. Especially pay attention to the spacing between the plants. You know, some plants get really big. Squash and zucchini, they get huge. And cucumbers, oh my goodness, they have vines that will take up half of your garden if you don't watch it. You know, I started planting my cucumbers with a trellis over them and let them climb the trellis. They do well on a trellis, and it sure helps keep them, keeping them from spreading out and taking over the garden. But if you think cucumbers spread out, cantaloupes and watermelon vines, man, they'll take up half the county if you let them. Thirdly, pay attention to how dry it is. You know, gardens need water, and unless you get more rain than we do here in East Texas, they'll need lots of water. And along with that is a regular fertilizer regimen, usually every couple of weeks. Fourth, weed. You know, if you let a garden go just a few days without weeding, it'll get away from you. I mean, right quick. Ask me how I know. And try to make a habit of getting out there every morning and chopping a few weeds. It doesn't take long, and it'll keep it under control. You know, nothing gives me more pleasure than to look across a clean garden. It's just like watching my chickens. Their antics make me laugh, and I get a sense of well-being. You do have chickens, don't you? You know, a nice garden has the same effect on me. Fifth, pick scuff before it gets too big. Squash and cucumbers especially seem to hide in the foliage because the leaves are big, and it's easy to miss them until they get the size of a baseball bat. Well, maybe not quite that big. And sixth, if you don't know how to can your excess produce, learn. I know canning seems daunting to some folks, but it's really not that bad. You know, there are several excellent canning books that will take you step by step through the process. I know there are horror stories about a pressure canner exploding, but that was very likely the result of someone doing something very wrong. You know, I've done a good deal of canning, and I still have all my body parts. Of course, there's also something to be said for using the proper equipment too. You know, my pressure canner is the American brand, and they're not cheap. I paid more for it than probably any other would have cost me. But in my opinion, it's the best one on the market. But I can assure you that that canner will far outlast me. My hope is that one day after I'm gone, one of my granddaughters will think of me while she's putting up something for her family using that canner. Okay, I could talk gardening all day, but I'd end up talking to the wall, so I'll shut up. If you're a gardener, good on you. If not, I hope you'll give it some thought and get some dirt under your fingernails. Well, folks, thanks for staying with me. I sincerely hope you got something useful out of it. If you did, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button and share it with others. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button to receive notifications when I post a new video. So this is the Piney Woods Prepper saying God bless and be safe out there.